Overpopulation is something that could have a devastating effect on our lives. It would mainly affect our environment. The earth can only produce a limited amount of water and food. A large amount of people consuming a little amount of these resources causes famine and dehydration. More people in this modern world means that these people need modern technologies such as cars. The more vehicles there are, the worse the air quality is because there is more CO2 being put in the air, causing global warming. Overpopulation could be a serious issue if it were to get out of hand. Hey Ruth, how was your long weekend?
Good, yours?
It was fun, but I got a little bored. Somehow I started looking at articles about overpopulation.
Overpopulation? That doesn't exist.
Yes, it does, and it's a serious issue.
In the article Overpopulation, the Perennial Myth, Dr. David Osterfeld believes that overpopulation does not exist. He says that in order to have overpopulation, the population must increase more than the available food, resources, and living space. He says, overpopulation cannot stand on its own. It is a relative term. Overpopulation must be relative to something, usually food, resources, and living space. The data shows that all three variables are and have been increasing more rapidly than population. Dr. Osterfeld uses primary sources such as the World Health Organization, a specialized agency of the UN that is concerned with international public health, and the World Bank, an international financial institution that provides loans to developing countries for capital programs. Dr. Osterfeld states food production has outpaced population growth by, on average, 1% per year ever since global food data began being collected in the late 1940s, and that there is currently enough food to feed everyone in the world. In addition, during the decade of the 1980s, agricultural prices in the United States, in real terms, declined by 38%. World prices followed similar trends, and today a larger proportion of the world's people are better fed than any time in record history. All of this proves the fact that food is becoming more abundant. Dr. Osterfield makes the point that ideas make resources, so more people equals more ideas. He says according to history and rapid growing populations have been accompanied by rapid declining resource prices as people have discovered new ways to use existing resources as well as uses for previously unused materials. An example would be the shortage of ivory for billiard balls in 19th century England that led to the invention of the celluloid, followed by the entire array of plastics. For the argument that living space is decreasing, the author makes an example stating that if the entire population of the world was placed in the state of Alaska, every individual would receive nearly 3,500 square feet of space, or about one-half the size of the average American family homestead with front and backyards. Also, population growth peaked at 2.1% per year in the late 1960s and has declined to its present rate of 1.7%. There is no doubt that this trend will continue, according to the latest information supplied by the World Health Organization. Total fertility rates, the number of births per woman, have declined from 4.5 in 1970 to 3.3 in 1990. This is exactly 50% of the way toward the fertility rate of 2.1, which would eventually bring population growth to a halt.
I don't know about that. Look at this article that I found. It talks about how overpopulation in China is so bad that they had to limit couples to one-child policy. This article is a secondary source and has quotes from an old speech that Mao Zedong said about the issue that was rising in 1949. Here it says, the population control policy limits the number of children Chinese couples are legally permitted to have. The default number is one child, but China's actual birth rate is estimated at 1.8 children per couple because of exemptions and lawbreakers, who are often aided by the widespread corruption of bribable officials. And down here it says, according to China's official news agency, 119 boys are now born for every 100 girls. The ratio in natural circumstances is 103 to 107 boys for every 100 girls. By 2020, China may have 30 to 40 million restless bachelors. In the rural areas where survival often requires hard labor and males are thus especially valued, China allowed a second child to be born if the firstborn was either female or disabled. It seems that overpopulation in China caused unbalance between the men and women, and then they had to try and balance it out again. It also says that there was an issue of the 4-2-1 problem, which one child is then responsible for their parents when they get older because of lack of retirement plans. Overpopulation causes a lot of issues. I've seen in some other articles that it can even affect the environment. In some places in China, they have to wear masks because the air is so bad due to cars polluting it. The author of this article is Wendy McElroy, a research fellow at the Independent Institute, where they focus on economic sciences around the world.
Wow, I didn't realize there was such an issue around the world. He may have not done so much research around the world since he is a political science professor after all.
He does make really good points, proving that overpopulation does not exist.
Although the article I found has data, it rarely has the sources where the data came from. Yours has more facts and sources to back up your author's claim.
See, that proves that my article is better than yours.
Sure.
The first article that you see here is the one used by Rebecca. The next article here is one that was used by Ruth. As you can tell, they are very similar. They are actually the same website. But what really matters is the author. The author is the one that is credible for all the sources.